Hello there, it's Jan here, back from JB Crafts. Thank you for joining me on the channel today. And I'm not going crazy. I know I've already made this card. This is last Saturday's project, which you've all loved. It was a double pillar card. If you haven't seen the video, if you just want to pop back on the channel, and the full instructions on how to make the pillars and make the card. It's got this lovely acetate to create this floating element, and yeah, this is actually the video that went up last weekend. And reading the comments, and a couple of people have messaged me separately, I talked about the fact that it all folds flat and that you would be able to make either a box or an envelope for it to go in, and one or two people have asked me how you would go about that. So what I've done for this week is I've designed something that you could actually pop this in to gift it in, because it is, you know, an unusual one. When it's flat, it measures 10 inches by 8, which is not a normal size for a envelope or anything like that. And making an envelope, you know, you would need quite a decent sized piece of paper. So what I've done is I've made sort of a gift box. I started out with a box, just a normal box, and I got as far as making the base for it. It was still dry and I hadn't even taken the little clips off, look. So I got this far, and I like to talk you through my thinking process as to how I get to things. So I'd got this far. All I'd done was added 1/4 of an inch onto the measurements, and I'd got this far to make the box for it to lay flat in like so, and I was going to make a lid. The problem with this, I envisaged, was because this is so springy, because of the nature of the card, you can see it popping up. It was going to pop the lid off the box to do it this way, to just have a lid that went over the top like an ordinary box. So that would have meant making some kind of, you know, band to go around it to secure it, which was an option. But then I went down another line and decided that I was maybe going to try more of a gift bag rather than a box. And then that evolved into a box. And this is my thinking process. So I've got the prototype that I made, and I'm going to show you how I've done this, and we're going to decorate it to match the card today. So this is exactly the same, pretty much dimension as what I'd got for the box here. It's just slightly bigger. So you can see we've got that sort of depth. I've gone for 3/4 of an inch depth, which gives you plenty of room for that springiness in the actual card. And then I got as far as having the two pieces. This is actually deconstructed. It's made in two pieces. Got this far with a view to maybe having it as a bag and popping handles on, and then decided to pop the little closure flap on it. But then actually I ended up with it this way, and we're going to decorate it and have a piece across here for the closure. So just to show you, as I say, this is not the one. I'm going to make it again for you today, but just to show you that when this folds flat now, it tucks in here beautifully, and you've got a really nice gift as well as a card for it to fit in. And this one actually measures finished 8¼ inches by 10¼ inches. So the card was 8 by 10. I've added 1/4 of an inch onto the width of it and the height of it, just so that it's got a little bit of movement and it's not squished inside the box. And you can see it fits in there beautifully. And that little bit of springiness, that 3/4 of an inch depth, just gives it room for it to have that space inside it. So I'm going to show you how I made the box and put this one to one side. And then I've got some of the same paper collection as what we had here, which was the Vintage Rose collection by Crafter's Companion. And we're going to decorate it, and we're going to put a little collage piece on the front so that it matches. And as I say, you end up with like a whole gift rather than just a card in an envelope. So what we're going to need then, let's get some pieces of cardstock ready. We're going to start out with the main part of the box. Okay, so I've got two pieces, all right, that measure 11½ inches by 9 inches. Now I've cut these out of an A3 sheet. It is a little bit wider than our A4. You could get it out of 12 by 12 cardstock if you've got 12 by 12, but this is actually my Centura Pearl, which is what I made Did I make? Yeah, I made the card base out of the Centura pearl, so it all matches. And as I say, these were A3 sheets that I'd got in my drawer. So 11.5 inches by 9. And we're going to do some scoring on these. And we will need 2 of them. So I've got one of them already scored. We'll pop that one to one side for a second. And we're going to bring this one in with our scoring tool. And we're going to score on the short side. All right, so on the 9, along, right, start again, Jan. Along the long side of the card, down this short edge, we're going to score at 1/2 inch. Let me just move those over. So we're going to do 1/2 inch to create a glue tab to stick the 2 pieces together. And then I want that 3/4 inch gap, which is going to be the depth of the box. So when I add that on, I get to 1¼ inches. And I've done them on the left hand side here. And then I'm going to rotate my piece of card. And I just need to make the 3/4 inch line now for the bottom of the box. So I'm just going to do one line at 3/4 inches, and that's all the scoring that we actually need on there. So let's pop that to one side. And let's just double check then. So across that 11.5 inch side, I've scored and made 1/2 inch, which is going to be our glue tab to fasten it onto the next piece. And then we've got a 3/4 inch gap and scored at 1¼ to make the side of the box. And then across the bottom, I've got the 3/4 inch. So this is going to be one piece of the box here. We've got the front section. This is going to fold underneath to make the bottom, the side, and the glue tab. And you want to do that twice. We want 2 of these that are exactly the same. And then we're going to fold and burnish. So we want to, wherever we've put a score line, we're just going to fold. And whenever you're making 3D projects, it's best to give the cardstock a really good burnish. And then we're going to do the same on this side. And I tend to use the, the bigger piece of card. So this is the bigger depth to put the pressure on the folds like so. And then again, just get that burnishing tool and give it a really good press. That cardstock needs to know that you want it to stay in that shape. And then we need to do just a tiny little bit of cutting. So across this bottom edge where you've got the 3/4 inch gap, you've got your long 3/4 inch, which is going to fold under the box. We want to make the little square here into a glue tab, and we're going to take off that outside. There's a little tiny rectangle along the bottom of that skinny tab, that 1/2 inch one. So we're going to cut that away completely. And then we're also going to release the score line here as well. Okay. And then I'm just going to take a very tiny bit to make this one into a little glue tab. So I've just taken those little tiny wedges off the edge. And then I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to do the same on here and on this top edge, because this is going to be a glue tab as well. So it just makes sure that there's nothing popping out of the edges when we fold it together. So front of the box or back of the box, whichever it ends up being, the base that we're going to fold underneath, and then we've got our glue tab which will stick to the base, and then this little 1/2 inch is going to stick to the other side that's going to be exactly the same. All right, and you're going to do that twice. Now I've done that with this one, and I've started adding some paper to this one, but I haven't burnished it, so I'm just going to do the folding and burnishing quickly. And I've just started adding some paper from that same paper pad just to speed up the video a little bit, because we've got a lot of paper to stick on today. So yeah, just going to fold those in like we did on the first piece. And then I've just cut some strips of paper to start decorating. So I've got the side panel and the base. So this will be the front, so that this one folds underneath and we see the paper. This one's going to be the back. And I don't need to put any on here because that's going to sit inside this one here, like so. But I do need a piece on this side just to finish it off. So I've just got little thin strips from the paper that I've chosen to decorate with. And because this is 3/4 of an inch, I don't think I went all the way down to 1/2 an inch. Yeah, I've done them at 5/8 of an inch. So all the strips are 5/8, and then I've just come down 1/4 of an inch. So this was 8 inches, 8 1/4 inches wide. So this long one is cut down to, no, that's the long one, Jan. This one was 10 1/4 inches. So I've cut the long ones at 10. All right. So this one's at 10 inches by 5/8. And then the height of the box was 8 1/4. So I've cut this one down to 8 inches by 5/8 of an inch. And then all we're going to do is use a little bit of my tape runner just for speed. You can use your wet glue on here if you wish, but as I said, there's quite a lot of paper to stick down, and because I've chosen the pearlescent finish on my cardstock, I don't particularly want to use the all-purpose glue. So this is going to go in this panel here. And again, you know, you can do this once you've put the box together. I just find it easier to stick some of the papers down while it's flat. Give it a good press, and then we can start and put that box together. So we've got our 2 pieces that are going to stick together with the glue tab here. And I am going to use a little bit of wet glue for that. I'm going to use my acrylic glue. So just on this 1/2 inch tab that we made, I am going to pop my wet glue just so that it gives me some wiggle room, and it is a little bit stronger bond. It's the bond lasts longer with a wet glue. The tapes and the tape runners eventually dry out and they can start coming unstuck. So yeah, you get a little bit better bond and a longer bond with the wet glue. So all we're going to do is make sure that they're both in the same orientation, and then I'm going to stick this one just up to the score line. I don't want to go over the score line, making sure that the top's nice and level and these score lines continue here at the bottom. And once I'm happy with that, I'm just going to apply some pressure to that join, and then when you turn it over, you should have it running nice and parallel along here. And I'm just going to use my roller to apply some pressure. I want a really good seal on that edge there, like so. And then we're going to do exactly the same at the other side. So I'm going to use that 1/2 inch tab again here. I'm going to pop my glue onto the tab, and it is quite a big box, this one, but like I say, you know, the card's a little bit of a, you know, a sort of a grand showstopper card. So, you know, you want something nice, and as I say, all of a sudden the cards become a gift, just rather than simply a greetings card. I think if you present them in something like this, you know, the whole thing is like quite exciting to open and end up with a, you know, a complete gift. So I'm going to fold both of those 2 edges in like so, and then this one should fold over and line up perfectly. Whoops, just make sure everything's straight. Let me get that edge there. It all wants to line up so that it's nice and straight, not overlapping the, whoops, that one's wriggling about. Let me just do it that way. There we go, making sure that that edge is nice and flush. So when it's folded flat, you should have a nice flush seam across that edge. And again, that one does not want to play today. Let me just pop a little bit more. I think it's because I've been messing about with the alignment. What is going on? Non-sticky glue today. Try that again. I think it's because I was messing about with lining it up, but that didn't want to play there. Right, we'll try that again, shall we? So we want to line it up so that we've got all those edges nice and flush. That's it. And then give it a good press. So the whole thing should fold down nice and flat. Something going on with that bit. I don't like how that bit's gone together there. Right, okay. For some reason, I don't know why that side doesn't like my glue and the other side does. So I'm going to try once more. And if it doesn't stick, we'll resort to adding some tape to it, I think. But for some reason, I don't know whether I've just not put enough on or I've still not filled it up. I've said, I think, on the last couple of videos that my bottle needs filling. And I still don't think I've done it. Right, we'll try again. And I want to bring that one down so that it lines up with the bottom there and with the top. Just there. And again, as I say, we want to make sure that when it folds over, the whole thing is running nice and flush. That's it. That's better. And then for some reason, I think we made it this time. Just fold it back that way. Yeah, we're good there. I think we made it. Okay, so you've got your little 3/4 of an inch gap now. And then we need to close the base. So I'm going to put that back edge down that didn't have the pattern paper on. Bring that one out of the way for a minute. Okay. And again, I'm going to try. I know I don't normally use my all-purpose glue on the cardstock, on the coated cardstock, but this is the bottom of it, so there's not going to be an awful lot of this showing. I am going to try. I don't know what's happened with my other glue today. I'm just going to put it on that first tab like so. Oops, all the way along. And then we want some on the back of the side tabs. And then I'm going to fold those in over the top of that base. And just hold that for a second. Let those grab. And then we want a little bit on top of the tabs. A little bit on the top of that one. And then this piece is going to fold down and secure it all together. And again, I just need to hold it in place and let that glue do its job. So I just need time, and doing it that way, it traps the little side tabs in between the two base elements. So you don't, you know, inside you get, and not that you see much of the inside, but you get a nice clean finish inside the box. And then once that's done, I am going to pop my, whoops, oh no, let me just check. I've just given that camera a good old whack then. Let me just check we're in place. We're good. Apologies if that's, yeah, there we go. And I'm just going to use the ruler in the bottom of there to spread out that glue. There we go. So we've got our box with the sides decorated ready. So all we need now then is to put the top piece on it, the little closure. And again, I've got another one prepped. So we've got 10 1/4 inches, which is the width of the box. Yep. And then I've gone 4 1/4. So I've made a 3-inch fold over flap. We've got the 3/4 of an inch panel that'll be the top of the box, and then I've got the 1/2 inch again for the glue tab. So we did exactly the same scoring. We did a 1/2 inch score line, and I've done a 1 1/4 inch score line on that one. And I just need to burnish those. I've put the paper piece on. I'm just going to burnish those score lines where we folded it. Give those a really good press again with the burnishing tool. And we're almost good to go. Now I've just taken a tiny little bit again off these glue pieces so that they're not sticking out. And then I also want to use my corner rounder, and I just want to take the corners off that bottom closure like so. So we've got our piece now that's going to fit on here like so and create the closure for the box. Okay, so again I am going to pop, we're going to risk this one, seeing as my acrylic glue, I don't know, there's not a lot left in the bottle. I don't know whether it's drying out a little bit. I need to investigate that. So we're going to cover that 1/2 inch glue tab, and I've stuck mine on the inside. If you want to stick it on the outside of the box, you're going to need the glue on the other side, but I'm actually going to pop mine on the inside. Let me have a look which way we folded it. I want that nice fold here rather than the join. So this is the back, so I'm going to stick this one inside the back of here and just line it up with that score line again, so we can just see there, dropping it into the back of the box and lining it up with that score line before I kind of press on those edges. And then we're going to just squeeze it together until that glue starts to adhere. And if you prefer to do this with tape, you can. I just want to get some pressure inside there. And then again, just make sure that you've got that score line showing so that you get a nice fold and a nice flush edge there, like so. Yep, so we've got that 3/4 inch at the top. We've got this folding over, and then I am just going to go inside there with my burnishing tool and give that a really good press down. Spread that glue out and then make sure it's all adhered nicely. Okay, so that's our box, and we're going to have it this way so that it folds over. You can have it this way if you prefer it to fold this way. I actually wanted my fold over piece on the right hand side. So now we're going to decorate, and I've got some papers from that same paper pad. They're not exactly the same as the card, but they're a good match. All right, we've still got that lovely sort of coral pink tone with the decoration on, but I'm not going to go mad with the box. I'm actually going to use the reverse side of it for the front and back of the box, and I've used that same side for the trim around the edges. So we're going to need 2 pieces of this that measure 10 inches by 8 inches, and then we're just going to pop these, one on the front and one on the back. They're both the same because I've cut them from 2 pieces of 12 by 12 paper. And again, for this one, we will risk, as I say, I need to check out that acrylic glue today. I don't know whether it's just drying out a little bit. Now, the only reason that I usually stay away from the all-purpose, it does work on the coated card. It's just sometimes if you get any sort of glue seep out the edge, it can occasionally interfere with the coating on the card, particularly on something like mirror card. You may get some sort of staining on the card itself, but I think we should be okay with this. So if it's got an orientation, just be aware of that. Mine's this way, even though I'm going to turn it that way, but it's only the faint music staves in the background. It's not anything, you know, too serious. So yeah, we're just going to give that one a little smooth out on there and let it do its thing. And then we're going to do the same. Now, you may not want to do the back. Again, that's entirely up to you and how much paper you've got access to. But I just thought, going down that gift line, it does finish it off nicely with the detail on the back as well. It just, like I said earlier, it really does make it into more of a gift than just a card. And again, we're going to pop that one, whoops, straight on the back there. And then just give it a little wiggle into place. Give it a slight press down, just so that it's all made contact with the card, and then let that glue do its job. Okay, and then for the front, I've got the same paper, but I am actually going to flip this and use the pattern side, just so that we've got a little bit of contrast going on. And this one measures 10 inches by 2 3/4. My fold over piece here was 3. I've just come down 1/4 inch, and it was 10 1/4 inches, so we've come down 1/4 inch on both measurements. And I'm actually going to put this one on the front. Okay, I've been round the edge of all my pieces of paper with the vintage photo again. It is called Vintage Rose. It is quite a vintagey look on the papers. Again, optional. I know some of you aren't bothered about using the ink. Me, it's almost become compulsory. Any of you that know me know that most of my, it's very rare, unless I'm doing something sort of very clean and simple, that my edges don't get a treat to the inks. A treat to the inks. I haven't got my head on, I don't think, this morning. And then we're just going to pop this one. I've rounded the corners on here the same, and we're just going to pop that one on that front panel as well. So you can see there we've got, and just by using that wet glue, it does give you time to just wriggle everything into a nice place where it's nice and straight. So I've not applied a massive amount of pressure yet. That one I can open and stick down. And now that these have been on for a minute or two, I can put my hand inside and give it a really good press down both ways. If I do that too soon, it sort of moves the paper out of alignment, but I think we're okay with those. And then I'm going to have it like this. Okay. So all we're going to do then is just embellish the front of it, and I'm going to keep that in line with the card. We'll pop the card inside now just to give it a little bit of support. So folding it flat, it should all fit in there. There's plenty of room for any embellishments that you've made, and we've got this nice and flat. So I'm just going to pop my ruler across the top there to hold it shut, and I've made a little bit of detail to go on the front. So I started out with that same topper book. So those of you that haven't seen the original video for the card, this collection came with a topper pad, and it's full of extra pieces that you can use, as well as some pop out pieces. And I took this piece here. I thought this was a really nice shape. So that's my original shape. I've matted it onto some of the pink, which is what I used for the actual card itself. And then I've just used some of the pieces out of that set, and I've added a couple of elements from my stash and just built up a nice little collage. And that was going to be my closure. I thought, that's it. It looks like the card does, you know, it's perfect for what I need, but it was getting a little bit lost. Because we've got so much pattern paper behind it, I just felt it was getting a little bit lost. So I've just took a scrap of the Centura pearl that I'd got left. I've used some washi tape just across here. I didn't want to introduce anything else, so I've just used washi on it. And just by popping this underneath, it allows it to lift from the background there. So that's what we're going to do. So what I've done is I've measured where I need to put some tape. Pop some double-sided tape, some red line tape on here, because I want it, again, because this is the element that's going to open, I want to make sure it's nice and strong. And then I've just marked the middle of this, and I'm just going to eyeball here. I pop myself a little pencil mark in the middle of this length here, and I'm not going to take it right to the edge of the box. I'm going to line it up with the piece of paper here. So I'm just eyeballing that center, and then I'm going to pop it right along the edge of the paper, and then let it do its job, let it stick. And we can just double check that everything's running straight with my T-square ruler. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. And then once that's in place, I can give that a good press down. So this is going to be part of the closure. Now, what I didn't grab out of my cupboard was, I want some little foam, a little foam dot, not a foam dot, what are they? Hook and loop dots. Get a little white one. I just want one of these for the closure on it. So I'll pop those to one side for a second. And it doesn't really matter which way around it goes, but I'm going to pop one under here just to close it onto the actual box. So we're going to take the top off one of them. They're both stuck together at the minute. So we'll take the top off that one, and then I'm going to stick that on the back of the centre here, on the back of there like so, and give it a good press. Okay, just give that a second. Get rid of the tape, and then we need to take the other element off the back, the other paper covering off the back here. So I'm just going to lift that with my craft pick. They are very sticky. There we go. And then make sure that everything is lined up now before we get this one to stick. So I want to make sure that the box is running nice and straight, and then we can give that one a little squeeze onto here. And then I'm not going to open it just yet, just give it a chance. And then this one now can stick on here, and I've popped some tape just along the middle section of here because it's going to stick to that white piece. And I've just used ordinary tape on this because this bit's not as heavy, and it's not actually going to take the brunt of the opening and closing. That's what the red line tape was on that one for. So again, I've given this a really good burnish down, and look, it's actually not all come off now. I pressed it down really well with my bone folder, and it's there we go. Get rid of all those pieces. Make sure it's the right way up. Get rid of those out of the way so that we don't get those stuck in the middle. And then again, I've just decided roughly whereabouts I want it, so I've got a line here that I'm going to use. Make sure it's running parallel with the edge of the box, and then get that one stuck on there. So we can now just undo the little hook and loop there, turn that one over, and as I say, give it a good press down. So this is going to be my closure now. And then just to finish it off, this is another piece from the paper pad that I've just cut out and mounted on a piece of card, and we are just going to pop that on as a finishing touch on here, as if it's got that sort of closure element. So it's got the rose on here again to just match. And I think that's about all I'm going to do for it. You could pop a greeting on the front if you want. You could put some lettering on. You could personalise this, you know, if it was a really special, you know, anniversary or a special number birthday. You could actually put the name. If you've got some die cut alphabet dies, you could die cut lettering and put the name on here. You could put the occasion on here. We talked about the card. If it was a special birthday like a 50th or a 60th, something like that, you could have the numbers on here. Lots of scope to actually add any more embellishment, but I am going to keep it as it is like this. So yeah, that's going to be my box. Got the little hook and loop closure on here, and then inside we've got that beautiful pop-up pillar card that we made last week. So you can see that the two complement each other. The piece on the front here complements the collage that we did on the back here. Got a little nod to the green that we had on the back here. We've got the butterfly. I just need to pop a couple of little pearls in the center of him to match this one. And most of these pieces are pop out elements from that little topper pad for the collection. So if you do have that collection in your stash, and I know some of you said that you did, I'd love to see, you know, what you get up to if you want to have a go at this. I know one lady said that she thought it would make a great Father's Day card. So yeah, that's my box for today. Really nice. Keep it safe. It also means that if the recipient wanted to keep the card, you know, as a keepsake, especially if it is a special one afterwards, something to keep it in. Keep it nice and neat. It's not going to get damaged. It's not going to get all the corners torn or anything like that. And then you've got that lovely gift box, which is what some of you had asked how to make. So I hope this has been helpful, just talking through how I arrived at the shape and everything. Hope it sort of works for you. And those of you that are going to have a go at the card, it gives you an opportunity to you know, to make the box. And you might just want to make that and put your own idea of embellishments on. If you've used a different collection, incorporate that on the front. But yeah, I just think that makes a really nice finished gift. Absolutely love it. So if you've enjoyed that one today, and if you'd like to see more of this sort of thing in conjunction with cards that I've made, let me know in the comments. Give it a thumbs up for me. If you're new to the channel today, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you if you've enjoyed the content, and I'll see you all very soon. So enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll be back with another tutorial very shortly. Bye bye now.